I feel like coilovers are really important for this car because it just looks so goofy without them. The car just sits way too high. There's unnecessary wheel gap, and let's face it, the stock suspension is a little bit loosey-goosey. So let's firm this thing up, let's make it look nice, and let's try something new. I'm already kind of into this project already, but step one, you're gonna wanna remove the interior liner. This guy, if you still have it on your MR2, which is just a bunch of pop clips that pop out of these holes, make sure you keep them in a place where you can remember where they are. You can replace a lot of them very easily. You pull this whole thing out so you have access to these 3 bolts here, which hold your stock suspension in place. So I already have the car up on jack stands currently, but I'm gonna talk to you guys real quick about how you actually raise the car up safely. The spot you're looking for under the car is this little indentation right here. This is where you wanna put all the pressure of the jack stand, right over or in between that. This cross member here can hold a lot of weight. Once you get it high enough, you'll just then slide a jack stand in, and I'll show you where to put those. There's a marking here, as you can see. There's like little slotted indents in the pinch weld, and you want to kind of align your jack basically in line between those 2 indents here. Now, I have these really cool jack stands that have a little slotted area and pads and rubber pads on top, and that's important so you don't bend or damage your pinch welds. Now, I'm already into this project, as I mentioned before, and I already have the front suspension completed, but it's very simple, and I'll show you step-by-step process with the rears. Basically, all you have to remove is the upper crash bolt, the lower crash bolt, this tiny bolt here, and there's a bolt that holds your brake line onto the strut. And then, of course, you have to remove these 3 bolts. You drop your old unit out. You pop your new unit in here, attach the upper 3 bolts, 1, 2, 3, and then reattach your hardware. What I ended up doing was bringing my jack stand over here and placing it underneath this point right here to raise it up to meet where the bolts connect to the suspension. After that, it was really just as easy as replacing the old hardware and finding the correct torque specs for the crash bolts and the top nuts. And I'll show you what those are gonna be right now. The correct torque for these crash bolts is 103 foot-pounds of torque. The correct for the top nuts are 29 foot-pounds of torque on each one. And because I'm nice, let's put some anti-seize on the crash bolts for the next person, which hopefully is not me. All right, now I've got my torque wrench set for 103 foot-pounds of pressure. I'm gonna torque this guy down real quick. One done. There we go. The front is torqued. All right, let's lower it down and see what our ride height sits at stock settings on the new BC Racing coilovers. I don't want to do this, but it's so low that I'm going to have to essentially jack up one side of the car, release the pressure on the floor jack, and slide it out, and then lower the car. That's the only way we're going to be able to get this jack in and out from underneath the central raising point. So that's fun. The difference between the gaps here. So here's our front. And here's our rear. Look how much difference that is. That is crazy. I'm not mad at that. I think that's honestly looks great, and I'll probably leave it like that for a while. All right, now it's time to do the rears. We've got a lot of gap to get rid of here on these guys. Now that we have our diaper shield off, the place we're gonna jack to is right here on this motor mount. This is what our OEM suspension looks like. And essentially it's the same thing on this one. We've got what looks to be 1 bolt here, and then our 2 crash bolts, and then this guy right here. We'll deattach this. And then our bolt to the top. This 1 bolt is actually a 12 mil, but it's really hard to get to. So we're gonna use our wrench on it. Here's an issue you're gonna deal with on the rear is you've got this control link, the sway bar control link arm, and when you try to loosen this with a 14 mil wrench, it's just going to spin within the bushing or within the housing. So there is actually a 5mm Allen built into the bolt itself. That's what I've done is I've taken, because I don't have an Allen key that fits in here, I've taken a half wrench and pinned it in a 5mm Allen head, and so the torque from it pins itself against the wall, and I'm able to take a 14 mil wrench and get in there and get that piece out. New suspension is in there. I just got to reattach everything, line this up and reattach it all. Also, I have these crash bolts here that are going to be going into the car on the topper portion. That way we can actually adjust camber. This is our gap on the front, much better gap on the rear than before. She's looking nice. That fit is pretty clean. So stoked. Very nice.